Good morning, everybody. Glad to be back this Saturday morning. My name is Ed Samuel. I'm a career coach with a firm called Sam Nova. We're based in Kennett Square, PA, and serve clients in the greater Philadelphia area and across the U.S. This morning we're going to take a bit of a twist on things, as I'm going to talk about my very first book that was released this past week called Optimize Your Resume, The Do's and Don'ts the Sam Nova Way. I published it on Amazon, and Amazon, all you have to do is, Google Amazon and do a search, and you could type in Optimize Your Resume, or simply type in Sam Nova, SAMNOVA, one word, and it should pop up. But, this morning I wanted to spend some time talking about the book and some of what you'll find in it and how you can, so you can help yourself and help people that you know and utilize this book. And, I have a foreword written in the book and by a guy named Joe Doc Doherty. He goes by Joe Doc. He's been in the HR consulting world for quite some time. And he's one of the best career coaches, really experts in the marketplace today. And Joe's not only a career coach, he's an executive search leader, he's an entrepreneur, and he's very much an HR consulting leader. He was a key architect, in fact, in growing a two-person startup career management firm to ultimately one of the largest firms here in the Philadelphia and Mid-Atlantic region in terms of an independently owned human capital group, consulting group. So Joe Doc is very experienced, and he was kind enough to write the foreword. We'll take a look at the book and wrote the foreword for me, and very grateful for Joe Doc. And Joe actually has a consulting practice today that he does recruiting services and coaching and you could find Joe at joedocconsulting.com. That's all one word, joedocconsulting.com. But my thanks for Joe for writing the foreword to the book. But, let me go back to, one of the reasons I wrote this book is because as a career coach, and I'm talking about on a personal level, I can only coach so many people. Even if I grew my company and I had multiple career coaches in my practice, we're only going to touch so many people. And on my heart, it was, that's not good enough. I want to be able to get some of my knowledge out there to a lot more people and thus help more people. And that was kind of one of my motivations for writing the book, especially when it comes to something as fundamental as a resume. The other thing is that some people, won't want to spend $1,000 on a resume, $750, $500, or even $199 to have their resume rewritten in some way, shape, or form. But hopefully for $20, they might decide to, grab this book and really gain the benefits of it. The other reason I wrote the book is I'm actually asked many, many times by a lot of consultants who have practices in certain areas, and they want to expand their practices and learn how to write a resume for somebody. And so this book is really touching on people who are in need of creating a resume, to revamping their resume, to testing it against, another resume thought process, to literally helping really everyone on that spectrum, even people, college students who, are seniors, and they're going to get something out of it as they create their resume for the very first time, to somebody who's 65 years old and wanting to work another 10 years crafting that resume and everything in between. And certainly, again, to help people who are consultants who are looking to build their practice out by writing resumes themselves. But fundamentally, the resume goes back to serving people to advance their careers, to optimize their careers. And even when unemployment is low, it's still a competitive market. It's still tough. And that resume has to be darn sharp. I've had the good fortune of literally, helping thousands of people over the years. But when it comes to resumes, I bet you I've seen 5,000 of them. And I would say 90% of them need work based on what I've seen to date, literally 90%. And 75% really need to be revamped completely. So a big part of, this is a big part of my rationale for writing a book getting out to more people and helping those people that are in need. I really tried to write the book in a way that's kind of aligned to my thinking, which is, focused to the point, and not going on and on and on in areas of detail that aren't necessarily needed to drive, some key points home. So it's about 110 or 13 pages long. It's not tiny print. It's readable, and I'm hoping that a lot of people will gain a benefit from reading it. Now, if you happen to have an Amazon account, and now, I'm plugging Amazon here, but if you sign up for an Amazon account, and I don't think it costs you anything for the normal Amazon account, you can actually find my book by, again, typing in Optimize Your Resume or the word Sam Nova, SAMNOVA, and you'll see the book come up. And if you have an Amazon account, they'll actually allow you to go in and you can actually read Joe Doherty's forward and my entire introduction. And then after that, you basically have to buy the book if you want to see what else is there. So that's really cool that they give you that ability to do that. Now, let's talk about the book itself, and I'm going to kind of go through the sections of the book that I wrote, a little bit of the whys, and what I tried to do in each section is identify something that's really important that you need to do, a little bit of why you need to do it. And those people who know me know that I'm very outspoken when it comes what to not to do. And I explain why. And I try to do that in every chapter of the book. And I really try to hit home the fundamentals, do's and don'ts at the end of every chapter in each section. So let's kind of kick things off. One of the things I hit on in chapter 1 is before you rush into a resume, asking yourself what's next. What do you want to do next in your career? Too many times I see resume writers running, and it could be career coaches, resume writers. It could be anybody, but you're trying to update that resume. But have you really sat down and thought about what do I want to do next in my career? What makes the most sense? And I always like to get that question answered. So I kind of go into detail in terms of how to go through that discussion, that self-reflection, that evaluation, and some tools and ways to go about answering that question. Because once we know where you want to go, writing a resume makes a whole lot more sense to me. And that's what I really talk about. The next section of the resume, it sounds so simple: name, location, your cell number, email, LinkedIn, URL. And again, it sounds simple, but let me just give you an example. One thing that I see all the time, I look at a resume. I just looked at one this morning, and I actually had to strain my eyes to find the person's name on the resume. It was in such small print that, it didn't even jump out. And once you read the book, you'll know what I really think when it comes to not being bashful when it comes to something as simple as your name at the top of a resume. And remember, as a former recruiter, I would flip through hundreds of resumes. But, in my book, I talk about many of the times a recruiter will get frustrated by looking at a resume. And some of those frustrations are big and some of them are small. But one of the small ones I could tell you with me was that, why do I have to search so hard to look at a person's name? I like to see those names big and bold. So, again, there's a section that really talks about those things. Then another section that's highly, that I spent a lot of time talking about is the title on a resume. So many resumes don't have a title. And I've heard all the arguments. Well, I don't want a title because I want to be able to be flexible. I want to be able to do all kinds of roles. But that works well if your only focus is applying for jobs. It doesn't work so well if you're trying to present a resume to a key decision maker somewhere, and at the top of the resume, you're not telling that person who you are, what your title is, what you're trying to be, and you kind of almost force them to try to figure it out. So I spend some time on title. Many times with clients, I might spend an hour And that's all we do is focus on the title. So I really go into that in the book and explain why that's so important. And it also shapes, again, the focus of the resume and what's to come on it. I then hit on a chapter that talks about, the summary at the top of a resume. Every resume should have a summary. And that summary needs to be, from my vantage point, succinct, not drawn out, not long, not paragraph length. I've seen so many summaries that have so much information filled into it. It misses the whole point of why are you trying to create a summary at all? You want to be able to hone in on the key things you really want to tell somebody about who you are. And one of the things I hit on repeatedly is taking out what I call fluff words. FLUFF, fluff words. Highly energetic, highly successful, highly results oriented. I could go on, and all those words are just filling space on a resume. So I kind of go into the detail about taking all those words out and getting to the quick of it. So important on a profile summary. I also throw in a couple of things where a lot of people kind of take for granted or don't articulate about themselves that can make all the difference in reading that profile summary. We then talk about core competencies and how important it is to highlight some of the most important core competencies. And I'm talking about business competencies and in some cases technical competencies, but not necessarily soft skills. Every company or organization that hires you, they kind of want to know, what are you really, really deep in? What are you almost an expert in or might be an expert in? So when we hire you, we can count on you, to be able to deliver those things. So I talk about what those core competencies are. And again, I go into some detail about staying away from creating long lists. And I've seen some long lists on resumes in terms of core competencies. Once you start making very long lists, you start really, it becomes counterproductive because what you're basically saying, I'm great at everything. Well, if you're great at everything, that means you're really not too good at anything. And you got to be really careful with that. There's a big difference between what you excel at versus what you are good at or very good at. And it also, gives you a feel for whether you have the ability to really crystallize and synthesize, who you are and at a little bit higher level. One of the most important chapters of the book, hands down, is chapter 6, where I talk about your value proposition. This is the area, if you were to buy my book and if you had one chapter to read and only one, I would say read chapter 6. Chapter 6 is where the biggest mistakes are made on resumes, hands down. I've seen thousands of them. Biggest mistake is where we're not articulating our value proposition in a way on a resume that really drives home your market value, what you're worth, what you've done, and the most important things you're going to be talking about during an interview. I go in great detail in terms of the types of questions I'm going to challenge you with to be able to answer. And if you can answer those questions and write it down on that resume, the chance of you having a very strong value proposition is just amazing, and it's going to help your cause tremendously. So many times I'll see resumes where I'll see activities, and activities by themselves don't necessarily translate into value unless you're able to quantify them. So that chapter 6, I just can't tell you. I could give a seminar, and I've done this before. I've given a workshop, hour-and-a-half workshop, just on how to articulate a value proposition on a resume all by itself. So chapter 6 is so important. It talks about your key accomplishments and your value proposition overall. And then we talk about, the firms, the organizations that you work for, employment timeframes. Yes, I'm going to talk about something that it's floating around the career coach coaching circles these days, and that's the this notion of only show the last 15 years on a resume. I'm completely opposed to it. If you forced me into a corner and said, Ed, what should that number be? My number would be the last 20 years should be detailed out on a resume. 15 is just way too short. And in some cases, it really becomes counterproductive, and it can really create integrity issues with how you're portrayed if you start to manipulate dates to make it look like instead of you being 50 years old, you're only 30 years old. And then you go to the interview and then they really find out how old you really are. And I would say 98.5% of the time, it doesn't end well. And a lot of people have wasted a lot of time to get to the same place. And I understand the arguments around age bias. And again, that's for a different book, for a different topic, for a different time. But something is as important as, the organizations that you work for become paramount. Now we hit another chapter. We talk about, your job titles, your responsibilities, and again, your key accomplishments for each key job that you've had. Responsibilities become very important because this is your opportunity to take a 3-page job description and kind of shrink it down to only a certain number of lines. And I've seen resumes where when it comes to responsibilities, they're all mixed in with accomplishments. In other resumes, you see some accomplishments, but you have no understanding of breadth or scope of a role that you were in because there was nothing listed in terms of what you were responsible for. So I've seen both extremes, but I kind of walk you through how to break it out. And I give examples of what a good one looks like and what a bad one looks like, and what to do and what not to do. See, then we get a little bit trickier. We talk about, there's a chapter 9, I talk about early career. What does early career mean? And it goes back to that age bias question or concern that's out there. How far back should I go? And I make no bones about when to go back, when not to go back. And I also, tackle, another hotly talked about topic out there. And that's, the resume has to be 2 pages. And I read articles, from the Wall Street Journal and from people that write these articles. They've never led recruiting teams. They never hired 3,000 people. They do not understand that, resume can be more than 2 pages if there's a good reason for it. But this notion that it has to be 2 pages is something that I certainly debate, and I certainly have a strong opinion in when we talk about several of the chapters in this book. I talk to that point. But early career becomes important in terms of how it's laid out. I talk about education and certifications. When is a certification listed, and should it be listed as active, inactive? I kind of hit on that. Another one of my favorite topics to talk about are awards. Oh my goodness. I've seen so many mistakes made on awards, where awards get mixed into a resume all over the place. And in some cases, people are, saying, well, I won, the sales award, for the quarter or for the year. And I kind of really explain, awards as a rule should be, carved out, set aside separately on a resume, and that what you did to win the award, that's part of your value proposition, but the award itself has no value to somebody who wants to hire you. It's just, that's your own personal award, but what you did to win it, that's why people are going to hire you. So I see mistakes made many times where we're talking about the awards, not what you did to win it. So that chapter, I really talk about that. It's one of my favorite topics to make sure that we pull out and cover when we're working with clients on resumes. Chapter 12, we talk about professional development, the learning that happens. Many times people leave college and the next thing you know, they start a job and they work somewhere for 25 years. And then on a resume, some of the greatest leadership training that they could ever have obtained, they've taken, yet that training is not on a resume. And it doesn't have to be, a well-known executive program. It could be something local, and it could be something that you've taken to continue to improve yourself. We hit on technical skills, what to list, what not to list. We talk about presentations and publications. We talk about patents, especially for those scientists and PhDs that are out there. We talk about professional organizations. Again, another area where you got to be so careful. Hey, I worked for a company for 35 years, but I've never joined a professional organization. But maybe others, and then I have the flip side where people are members of 3 or 4 professional organizations. Some of them are very well known. And in some cases, you may have even spoken on at those professional organizations at a national level, but yet it's all missing from the resume. And again, it drives me crazy because people say, well, I didn't list it, Ed, because we would have gone to 3 pages on the resume. It's like, oh my goodness. It's another reason I take blood pressure medicine, because when I hear these comments made to force a resume to 2 pages, not so good. I also hit on volunteering community at length. We talk about the standards of a resume, the look, the feel, the length. I actually even go through all the resume sections, and I supply you in this book an actual real-life example and template of a resume that you can look at, get a feel for, and know what yours should look like at the end of the day. And then I kind of conclude with the ultimate do's and don'ts, kind of the big 13 to not do or to do in the final chapter. And then for those people who want to buy our book, Optimize Your Resume, Do's and Don'ts the Semnova Way, at the very end, you'll see a way that you can communicate with us after you've bought the book, and we'll be glad to send you the Word template of an actual resume already pre-formatted for you so that you can actually work and develop and build your own resume from it. So that's a big piece of what we've done and what this book is about. Hopefully it's given you a little bit more insight, maybe some motivation to go out and buy it. It's available again through Amazon. And again, just, go to Amazon, search for Optimize Your Resume. You'll see it. Or type in the word Samnova, capital SAM, capital NOVA, all one word. So that's those are the details about the book. And I looking forward to talking many places and doing a few book signings on the East Coast, believe it or not. Hopefully I'll be down in Florida, Greenville, South Carolina, and quite a few places here in the Philadelphia area. I want to, again, thank Joe Doherty for that forward. And one other thing, once it's out on Amazon now, but it will be on Kindle. So for those people who kind of want to look at it on an iPad and not so much interested in the hard copy book, I think we're going to have it out on Kindle by the end of this week or early next. So it takes a little bit. And we're taking a look at putting it on an audiobook series as well. So we're just about out of time. Please join us again in our next Optimize Your Career program on Saturday, October 19th. We'll be talking about firms that offer flex jobs, F-L-E-X, flex jobs that allow you to work from home. And joining us will be an industry-leading expert in flex jobs. This is Ed Samuel, career coach with Samnova. Our website is www.samnovainc.com. If you'd like to reach me with a question or comment, it's esamuel@samnovainc, SAMNOVAINC.com, or call our main number at 610-274-8214. So make it a great weekend. So long for now, and God bless.